The board met in closed session and discussed real property negotiations. And this morning we have 3 items on our open agenda. It's my understanding that we've received no written public comment this morning. Mr. Clausen and I are attending the meeting remotely. Everyone else is present in the boardroom, all other trustees. And it looks like we're ready to go with a Measure C and D update.
Yeah, so I'm gonna share a few things with the board today that, in terms of progress with Measure C, where we're at. But why don't I start with Measure D? Just kind of a quick, where we're at with the 2 comprehensive high schools, right? So we are San Luis Obispo High School, very near completion of the center bottom portion of that, which of course is the kind of the multi-use room, as well as the cafeteria area there, right? So the kitchen. The kind of the holdup for that has been just some things that needed to, what happens after construction, we go through then and we look at everything. And we get a big list, right, of fix this, this is done, there's a scratch here, there, and all those things. So they're basically going through that list now at that middle section of San Luis Obispo High School, right? So upon completion of that, will be a positive thing. Honestly, for the organization, for food service, it's probably kind of nice, right? Because Erin is really getting that Morro Bay kitchen going, getting things started there. So having a little bit of time before she then transitions to Slow High and gets that going right, it's probably a positive thing. They have utilized the front area, the multi-use, for functions already at San Luis High. And so it's, you're kind of moving forward, right? They are madly at work on the northern section of the 100 building, which of course is some classrooms, the library, career center, and that is estimated to be completed by the fall. They're also a little delayed because of this recent rainstorm, but they're working on the entire front quad area there, right? So all of that, new grass, new walkways, ADA accessibility, and then they will be finishing by this summer by redoing the road that goes from kind of the newer gym all the way up around to the ag, okay? And that is basically the end of the Measure D Acme portion of that. For San Luis Obispo High School. We still have a handful of things that we will look at doing, including the 500 wing model classroom. We want to do a bathroom, do some renovations up at Taylor Field, right? We've talked about, we're gonna, once the library and career center's done, they're gonna be able to move in, which means we can then do some remodels in the old music and choir room, right? So there's still some projects to do that. It looks like we might have some money fall to the bottom line with Measure D based on our current projects that we're doing, as well as we expect to get some, again, like we've talked about, some state money back, some matching funds that we should be receiving right to do there. And so the next phase is Morro Bay High, right? Fantastic grand opening, of course, to the kitchen and that facility, the stage for these. We actually ordered a stage for Morro Bay High School that is coming
in 4 days.
So, this is one of those things where you design a project 8 years ago and you just finish it and the teacher changed and the principal changed. And, so kudos to Chris and his staff, right, where we then go in, we meet with the new people, okay, we accommodate, right? We find out ways. So again, at first there was not gonna be a stage, they didn't want a stage because it was really just for band and dance program. Well, now they have a pretty good drama program. So we're getting the stage for them, right? So again, that's coming in, it's great, right, for them. Morro Bay High, we're also right now working on replacing all of the stadium lighting that's up at Morro Bay High School, okay? Because the current lighting is falling off, the old poles there. So it's definitely something that's needed as well, right? So also along with that, with those lights, redoing the bleachers at the stadium. And so, kind of working through that aspect of it. So again, our focus is this summer to get that accomplished, right? And then really the last project at Morro Bay High will be the A building, so which is kind of the library classroom building next to the pool. So they're finishing that now. Realistically, that's not gonna be done until November, December of next year, for probably in January. Now, they're fortunate enough in that Morro Bay has
2025 or
2024,
24?
no, 2023, this year.
End of this.
End of this.
Next school year.
So next school year, yeah, so like, again, like November, December of this next school year, yes, excuse me. And so some of that was some rain issues, right, getting the roofing materials, those types of things, so it took a little bit longer, but it's okay, you know, in terms of getting that accomplished, again. What I think is gonna be more of the issue for that is that parking lot by the pool area there. They're gonna begin that work this summer, redoing all that parking area and the road that goes out, as well as the auto shop, as part of that Building A project. So, our hope, or goal, I should say, not hope, we're gonna get it done. There's gonna be a road, new road will be put in that at least gets people to the back parking lot area there by the gym. And as well as the automotive area. And then, you know, that'll at least provide the access for parking. And then probably in September, you know, they'll be finishing up kind of that front area there in front of the pool. Okay, and then opening up the entire thing. Now, they did get some expanded parking behind the kitchen area. So that's all done now. So that grew some parking, right? So we're gonna need to work with staff. Staff's gonna have to
Here, Olivia, don't pull that out.
ensure that the kids all park in front, right, for that. And really leave that back parking lot for staff as well as for the city use, okay? So that's something that, again, already having conversations, working through it, but we'll get through it. With both schools,
Are we gonna pave that dirt parking lot?
No.
Between by the, okay.
not yet. The one that's over by the J
By
wing,
Like the baseball field and
not currently in this, you know, in terms of funding wise.
Alright.
Again, Morro Bay, there's still some work to, you know, again, I got, you know, a handful of projects that would be nice to finish, you know, cleaning up the resting room, there's some storage rooms there by the gym. You know, do we build a concession stand at Morro Bay like we have at SLO? You know, there's just a few things too that hopefully with those state dollars that we get back, we'll be able to kind of finalize those, not use Measure C on those sites, okay? It should be great. So again, super positive about that. My goal will be for the board, just so you know, is that we will have Measure D celebrations at both sites. So we will have you know, St. Elizabethville High School, when they're done, when we're finished our projects, we'll get a gigantic plaque with all the board members' names and the architects who's been, you know, kind of like you see at most schools, right? And we'll do a big celebration at the school site, you know, the past principals, people that are there, you know, all those things, right? Former board members, bring everyone together. And then we'll do the same thing at Morro Bay High, right? So just public, again, open up the schools, let people do walks, see everything, right? You know, we'll kind of plan those for the fall as those projects complete. So excited. Measure C, Chris and myself have been hard at work with Measure C. Phase 1, the board kind of, hey, let's go, these phase 1 projects. So we have, since that time, met with every architect. We have walked every site. We have finalized scope of those by walking with the architects. What are we gonna do, right? What exactly? There's some things that we took off, right, because it didn't make sense to do them yet. And there's some things that we added because it did make sense to do those. And so I'm gonna share a document kind of giving you an update with that. We're right now finalizing that with the architects along with their fees, okay? At a meeting, probably not Tuesday night, but the end of May meeting, we'll be bringing those amendments to the architect contracts to you, which basically has the actual fees that they're being paid for the board approval at that point. And so just to kind of give you a glimpse of what that document looks like. And so Chris and I are actually starting this afternoon, meeting with those architects and finalizing those fees and the scope. And so this is kind of the document that we put together with the help of Gary Geary at the time, right? So it has every single school. And I will share this with the board in Friday notes. But basically, it gives you kind of a glimpse of each site, what we're currently looking at for construction costs, what those potential soft costs will be. Again, soft costs is not the architect's fees alone. That's the cost of our staff, that's the cost of the architects, that's the cost of the inspector, that's the cost of the surveys, that's the cost of every other thing that's not construction related, okay? So again, I'll share this with you and we can, one of our next study sessions, I'll review more of it, but basically, so you have Baywood, again, it has the scope, it has this like the square footage of those, or if there's just kind of a set fee based on work to be done. It has like kind of a cost per square footage, which gives you construction costs, which gives you contingency, which gives you construction budget. If we estimate soft costs at 25%, which for me is on the high end. Okay, I do not think we're gonna have soft costs of 25%. We didn't have soft costs of 25% with Measure D.
What was our contingency with Measure D?
We were holding about 7, right?
It very dependent on.
Again, this is just from a budget planning standpoint, right? So, the actual GMP for a site, the actual contingency budget that we put in Maryland will be based on really the work that they're gonna be doing. Like if it's a set known project, fire extinguisher, we're gonna have a lower contingency versus something that's a modernization, maybe higher than 7%.
And
Right.
go to 10.
But this for me, is just really, again, this is kind of that initial phase of like Measure D2 where we were just, what projects are we doing? What are the budgets? What are the soft costs? And again, I try to plan my budget, being more conservative, right? So I'm gonna plan for 25% soft costs and when it's not, great, right? In terms of that, just to be smart, because you don't wanna run out of money. And again, this served us well with Measure D. This kind of phase and kind of going into this, right? So, again, you'll see those, the focus for the board, and I'm not gonna go through every site right now because the board's already approved those and it's very similar to what we've talked about in the past.
Can we see Pack Beach?
Yes, I'll show you, absolutely. I'm gonna show you a summary of all the costs. So there's still some things, right? We're gonna take the board around on the 19th, right? To see, Avila Beach, property we just talked about in the closed session, as well as the modulars at Bellevue Santa Fe, as well as, some modular construction at Lucia Mar, some projects, right? So, the board can make some decisions about, what we do at Pack Beach, although we are looking at those and planning for those with, a lot of the TK facilities that we're at. For the most part, phase 1, we're focused on the, exterior of buildings, the envelope of these campuses, right? Because it makes no sense to go in and paint roofs and do everything if they're gonna leak and leave spots, right? So you get the envelope done, HVAC, air conditioning in a lot of places, right? And then we go back in and we begin to look at classroom buildings, those types of things. At the same time, we are focused at many schools on redoing the restrooms while we're doing that envelope. Something that kids and staff can see right away, makes a big difference, right? And as we walk sites, we need to redo some restrooms on our campus, right? And that was, very clear as we go through it. So, so just a few things, Eve, for you, Pack Beach, right? As asked. That's Pacheco, excuse me. I sell P.
Very private, I think it is.
That's right. So there's just some overall costs potentially, right? The 750 unit cost right now is for new construction. So that's if we stick built this campus. Yes.
So when do you need that decision made, modular versus stick? Or is it made?
No, it isn't made. Right now, we're doing the higher stick built.
Yeah.
In here, right? So my hope is that on the 19th, the board sees some different facilities, what they can look like, and then you can, kind of guide us in whether or not we need to make this, focused. But
in conjunction with that, I've been meeting with, modular companies to see what they have to offer. So I've met with 3 so far, get their layouts, some rough costs, just to see what floor plans they have. So we can be a little more educated on types.
I have a question about Pack Beach. Go ahead, Mark.
No, no.
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
Okay. So, comparing Baywood and Pack Beach, why are the costs so different? It looks like a lot of the same things are being done, and there's probably a lot of grading to be done at Baywood,
So,
maybe?
I mean, Baywood is a school of 25 classrooms,
And
Pack Beach is
gonna be much
6.
smaller, and we're not gonna
6,
enlarge it or.
60 kids, 75 kids, right? Like it's a continuation, of very small.
Okay,
Baywood is a,
400
that's 400 to 450, right? So it's very, very different in scope.
well, we're adding CTE and some complicated things like that.
Yeah, but even that's built into that smaller. So we're actually, the new construction at Pacific Beach adds 2 CTE classrooms. So we are looking at that, adding a cafeteria space, it's really, a big addition in terms of square footage for that campus,
Okay.
right? Absolutely.
So, I'm sorry, on this topic of PB.
Uh-huh.
Have we spent time with Ron Stinson in the CMR? My understanding is they started out with modulars, they weren't happy,
So yes,
and then went to stick built.
so
That's my
yes,
understanding. Okay, and then when it
there's
comes.
there's more to it
Oh,
than that,
okay.
but that will be, I think, Chris taking you around, sharing the pros and cons of modular construction. So yeah, Andy Stinson is the BG&T person there, who can give his pros and cons thing, but we're gonna dedicate that morning to having that conversation about modular construction with the board.
Okay, and then secondly, as we finish this along Eve's line, is there a possibility that there could be a small iInnovate lab or some way to create one of those CTE classes at Pack Beach? At this point, all the other schools have something similar to the iInnovate,
So the elementary schools do,
just in, okay,
yeah, right, because we move into CTE pathways.
Yep.
The TTE classrooms. So the current space right now and thought at Pack Beach is to have 2. One would potentially be a culinary space, the other would be a construction class, they've started now. We want to have those facilities be adaptable, because it's construction now, could be computer, engineering, welding or something in the future, right? So we're gonna make those spaces kind of big open spaces, right, that can change and adapt for PV as the kids' needs go. But yeah, definitely, they're gonna 2 large CT spaces with roll-up doors, all those types of facilities are planned for PV.
But
Right.
there's no plans for enlarging PB, because there might be more students with those unique qualities as we go along.
So that-
Because people are getting to be so much more unique than they used to be.
And PV has plenty of room to grow,
Okay.
right? I mean, you think about currently 70 kids, 4 full-size classrooms, plus 2 CTE rooms. There's a lot of room to grow for that school.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I want to take you to the summary, Doc, right? Because this is, it's always good to have those reality conversations about what things cost, right? And so we have to be really cautious, as we did with Measure D, right? Of, hey, we want to make one particular school, hey, do all this, do that. We have to look at everything with a big picture, right? So just the phase 1 projects that we've talked about, which I can, in another meeting, I'll go more in depth in with you, but as you can see, just right now, phase 1, $164 million. First bond sale was 90 million. Okay? Now, we'll have enough, we have enough to do this, right? This is completely building a brand new Baywood Elementary School as part of this, right? So, there's some big projects that are gonna take more than 2 years, right? So we'll have our next bond sale by the time this work is completed or we need the funds, right? But, it's just to show, right, how quickly things can come together, right? So our goal will be to, kind of take this, and again, this is a conservative for me part of it, right? So if we use modular instead of stick-built at PB or at Baywood, that takes the $750 per square foot unit price down to $400. Right? So there's a lot of savings that can be had, right? Which allows you to do more projects in the future. So our goal right now for Chris and I was to make this first phase budget, and then we're gonna start now, once this gets going, phase 2, phase 3, so that we can create this entire budget for all of the projects, right, that we wanna get accomplished with Measure C.
I'm not looking for a big discussion, I just want to throw this out because I just thought of it. We have a construction class at PB, we're gonna have lots of construction at PB, and we've had a lot of talk about interns and that, so it's just, that's all I want.
That's great, yep. Okay. So this is where we're at. At this point, again, I just wanted a quick update. Honestly, you know, putting this together, meeting with the architects, I mean, we are squeezing them, right? You know, just the scope that we talked about, there's not, you know, no fluff, like we're really detailing this down. And again, we're just in such a better place as a team, right? When I think about where we started with Measure D and how we're starting Measure C, like we're just, it's like two different planets, right? In terms of knowledge level moving forward. So I just wanted to share that with the board. I feel like we're in a good place. Again, we'll bring those amendments to you for the architecture. Along with that, we are about ready to bid the fencing for all of our sites, the remaining sites that need to have fencing accomplished, right? With the hope that we're gonna get that accomplished this summer. It may go a little bit into the fall, but really this summer, right? So Loams, Lambs, Los Ranchos, you know, just all the fencing along those projects, right? So that will be a nice visual, I think, that we'll be able to celebrate in the fall with our parents, with our staff, right? And really, you know, that kind of the first phase of Measure C construction that goes. As we get this accomplished, I will have each architect kind of put together a board of what we're doing, Measure C, right? And the work that's being started, right? So that we can also start to share that in the fall, right? Kind of get that publicity out about what we're doing, where we're headed, as we move forward. So, you know, we'll make sure that we're tying people in and getting them, you know, actively involved in the conversation too.
Yeah, we involved the staff under D, we involved the staff at the comprehensive high schools in the design of their spaces. And I just would want to be sure that the PB staff has the same kind of opportunity for input. And so that they don't feel that they're getting short shrift in a modular, if they can see a modular and see what that can provide for them.
Yep.
Because certainly if that's an acceptable route to go, there are substantial cost savings associated with it.
So agreed, and again, just so you know, like they have been like we're already at schematic design, which we've shared with the board, right? So we have tied that staff in throughout that entire process of getting to where, you know, okay, we need these rooms, here's where we want the doors, we want them interconnected, we need the storage, we need, you know, from the office space, we need these rooms, you know, like they love kind of the layout, the features of it, right? Kind of all the things that they want and need, the roll-up doors, the CT rooms. They've been part of all that conversation, right? So in terms of the actual modular versus stick-built, yeah, that's something, I think first I want to have the board kind of guide me in that direction, and then I have no problem then kind of sharing with them what it looks like or visiting sites that are, you know, modular, those types of things.
If they have an
Honestly,
interest, taking them to Bellevue or
As you're gonna find, you can't necessarily tell that they're modular buildings, they look like a stick-built building, but let's, you know, we'll kind of outline that for you. Ellen, you're on mute.
Boy, you'd think I'd have this figured out by now. Isn't that the similar process that we did with Measure D, where we took staff around to look at things, and so I will
Absolutely.
do something similar this time around. Okay,
PB's just on a much smaller scale.
sure,
Right,
sure.
so, but like Chris walked the science teacher through the rooms at San Luis Obispo High School, right, to see built-in science room, kind of what you need. So again, we have done a lot of that same kind of work and effort, with the staff at PB, and I think if you talk to the teachers there and to Mr.
Right.
Dowler, you'll find that they feel very included, very tied into,
Right.
the current design.
That's what we want. Thank you.
Sure, and that's my Measure C, Measure D.
Are there any questions for Ryan? Very busy times in front of us. I just want to take a quick second and acknowledge Ryan and Chris for really doing a good job putting these phase one budgets together. It's very difficult, it's gonna help us tremendously, and I appreciate their work.
Thank you.
Okay,
All
all
right,
right.
we'll move on to the LCAT.
Thank you.
Oh, one thing, pardon me, one thing that we learned from Mr. Holcomb, was let's make sure we date all of these budget iterations, even these
Sure.
early preliminary ones.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. That's a really important reminder.
All right, shall we move on to LCAP?
Yes, please.
All right, very good. So Leslie O'Connor, Rick Mayfield, and I are here this afternoon to give you another update on the LCAP, the Local Control Accountability Plan. And this is actually presentation number 5. And it is the last presentation before our public hearing and first read on Tuesday the 16th. So what we wanted to do was to give you maybe a little bit more detail than the broad strokes we did last time we were together. We're going to remind you of the feedback. We are going to talk about notable action items in focus areas 1, 2, and 3. And it's not necessarily just new action items, just notable ones that we want to bring again to your attention, because we know that you're looking at a 40-page document when you're going through the LCAP. So we wanted to just remind you of the most notable things. And then you're going to see budget in this as well. Katie Eklund worked with us and spent a lot of time, and we really appreciate her work dividing it up between focus areas 1, 2, and 3, and then overall budget areas. So all of that this morning, and then of course, any questions that you might have. All right, we're gonna start with focus area 1. There we go. Let's see, I think Mr. O'Connor.
Yeah, good morning. I'm so glad that Mrs. Ross worked at the computer over there. I would be
We'll see how
lost
it
if that was
goes.
the case. Remind everybody on the feedback piece, think about the fact that we have included from our community, our parents, our staff, our students in various ways with regard to feedback. Think about how we've had almost close to, maybe, I think it was 800 responses from parents and staff specifically.
Mark, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm having a really hard time hearing you.
Oh, Leslie.
Leslie.
Oh, Leslie, I'm really having a really hard time. Whoever's
You didn't
speaking, I'm
hear
having a
that?
hard time.
I know, I'll use my teacher voice for you now.
Thank you, thank you.
So close to 800 responses when we talk about our feedback. When we think about our students specifically, we're receiving a lot of feedback from our students with our student senators. We also talk about our youth truth feedback, which really aligns with a lot of the areas that our student centers talk about and give us feedback around. When you think about our parents and community, we're talking about using our ELAC, we're talking about using our DLAC, we're talking about using our equity team, we're talking about looking at our LCAP advisory team, and also our survey information. And we always have to think about, that's a great broad section of community members. And then with our staff survey piece as well.
So when the 800, I'll interject, the 800 is just the survey itself. $799, just the survey itself. And then in addition, all those groups that Mr. O'Connor mentioned.
And you'll see there's certain pieces of the feedback that really align to each other. When we look at focus area 1, it just disappeared, I apologize.
Sorry, that was
No
me.
worries. When we look at some alignment between our students and our parents and our staff, it obviously goes along with the idea of highly engaged, hands-on activities, experiential learning, opportunities to really take from what we learn in the classroom to what we'll be taking into life beyond high school. And remember, this is all the way K-12, okay? Just something to pull out. And then when we look at our notable action items, on the left-hand side, we're talking there about the lower grades, we're talking about Spanish language arts, and I'm sure Rick will speak to that, our history and social science, and then our ELA, K-5, and then 6th grade. We talk about our secondary science, we're talking there about our physics pilot, our chemistry pilot, we're talking with regard to our health adoption that's coming up, our increase in advanced placement courses at our high schools and opportunities for students. And then we'll talk about our ELD-focused curriculum and planning and elevation that Rick will mention, and our DLI support. And on the right-hand side, the growth that we've done with regard to our middle schools specifically, with our CTE counselor and our pathways and with our 6-year development, our teacher academy, our CPM training that we're excited to have to come to our school district in the fall, where we're going to partner with CPM to bring them post-COVID to help train and retrain a lot of our teachers. Our math teacher academy, which will be linking our upper elementary grades with our middle and our high school grades, and then our guided language acquisition. Rick, do you want to speak to some of the elementary pieces?
Absolutely. So for Spanish language arts, as we review the data for our DLI programs, it kind of shouts out tier 1 issues, right? Like first best instruction issues. Teachers, Lucy Calkins is an English only program, and it doesn't include a robust ELD program. In fact, it doesn't really include any ELD program. So as we've had discussions at the cabinet level around the district, it's pretty clear that we needed to redo our curriculum for DLI and really for all of our schools with the science of reading coming in. So we're going to do it in 2 different phases. We're going to start with DLI because that seems to be like where the biggest need is. And then we're working this year on ELA. We'll pilot next year, we'll adopt the year after. So one of the things that's great about adopting new curriculum is it gives you an opportunity for a professional development cycle. And then you get to meet with all your teachers. I've said this to the board before, 60 to 70% of our elementary teachers have not been through professional development provided by Teachers College on the current curriculum that we have, which is Lucy Calkins Reading and Writing Units of Study. We do professional development activities for them, but it's not, it's not comprehensive like that. A full week, out of the classroom, really high quality trainers, that kind of thing. We do a new teacher academy at the beginning of the year, and it's a day on language arts, a day on math. And really, it's not sufficient for new teachers coming in, especially with a curriculum that's so dense, for lack of a better term. So very excited about the Spanish language arts adoption. The actual official adoption will come in from the board on the May 30th board meeting, and we'll go more in depth into exactly what we're going to do there and the teacher feedback and I think we'll even have a video that the teachers provided to talk about why they selected the curriculum adoptions that they have. History, social science, we adopted in, I want to say either 2006 or 2007. It's basically obsolete, the current curriculum that we have. And so it's easy then for teachers to kind of not teach it. And especially with the pressure of language arts, math, writing, that kind of thing. So very excited about TCI's program. And it will come in front of the board this coming Tuesday, the 16th. We're going to bring that adoption. We'll do a presentation on HSS and give you some details there. 100% of the teachers voted for one particular program, which will be TCI, it's called, which will be our recommendation on Tuesday night. And then English language arts, as I mentioned, for the elementary level, we adopted a secondary ELA, HMH, gluten, methylene, Harcourt, last year, as you recall. And then 6th grade was kind of in limbo, on the coast using the secondary adoption, in town continuing to use units of study. So we have shifted and we're going to have 6th grade in town go with HMH. So that when we eventually get to the conversation of perhaps moving our 6th graders to the middle school level, then they would already have the curriculum and be using it. And then we're doing the reading committee this year. We've narrowed down to 2 different programs that we're going to pilot for next year. Interestingly, the same two programs that Spanish language arts looked at in pilot. Yeah, I thought so too. So, and then next year we'll do the pilot. We've got a lot of teachers excited about that. We're training in June and in August for the pilot. And then they'll do that next year, and in spring of next year, we'll have a recommendation for on what program we should go with. Yeah, and then ELD, you know, please.
Is the pilot for the ELA, is it a combination of whole language and phonics in both?
It will absolutely include some of the elements of science of reading, which would be phonics, phonemic awareness. So it'll have those things in there. We've supplemented now with separate programs on both, like phonics is one particular program and phonemic awareness is a different program that we're supplementing with right now. But the thinking is that these programs will contain all those things and have a good ELD component built into it.
Thank you.
So that will be tremendously helpful.
Yep, so 3 quick ones. Somewhere within all the reading, it said that the state actually has recommended curriculum, or you can go with your own.
Correct.
Are we pretty much focused on state recommended?
We are looking at things, we've looked at a lot of different things, including some that were not on the state list, but we went with programs that are on this.
Okay, and it seems like the history science, social studies science, 2007. My memory says that there's a cycle, so every, I don't know what it is, every 2 years, are we out of cycle? 2007 is a long time ago.
Yeah, we probably are. It's not a mandated cycle in terms of you will adopt on this. It's like a recommended from the state. Here's a typical adoption cycle.
Okay.
They redid the framework, I don't remember how many years ago, several, and we just didn't see high quality programs that had made much of a difference. You know, a lot of times initially, companies will stamp on there, you know, new and improved or whatever, and they haven't really changed much about their curriculum. But we feel that this new program, which again, we'll talk to the board about on Tuesday night, does have significant upgrades for teachers and the team that was
And then
involved.
just-
Very
sorry.
excited.
Thank you very much. Then just last, you mentioned that the coast and the town, in town were on different, are there other programs that were the two town and
Yeah, no.
are not incompatible?
No, like math, for example, is Bridges K-5 everywhere.
Okay,
6 and up CPM,
okay.
right? So that's including in town. And it's kind of one of those funny areas. We left them with units of study because that was kind of the desire. And people were accustomed to using it, but in our conversations, it seemed like the time to transition to have them use, you know, a different curriculum.
So just specifically, there are no other programs that are different between the coast and town in the classrooms?
That I can think of.
Just checking.
No, science is all secondary, yeah.
Okay,
So-
good.
How long has secondary science been combined with health? They used to be separate, didn't they?
Well, they're separate subjects.
Yeah, I think for the nature of just our presentation, we
Yes.
just put them
Oh,
together.
put them on the
same
same line.
Yeah,
That would be
put them on the
very
same
confusing,
line.
thank you.
Because I am examining the health textbook, and it seems to me that there are some things that are not settled science in there. And so I was wondering that, I was thinking that putting it together with science makes it sound like it's settled.
Yeah, we're just saving space.
Exactly, so those are two different items on that same line, saving space.
Okay, would the students not think that health is based on settled science though?
Is this combined in other places?
Well,
I'm
I'm
that's
not
fine.
sure we're on the
Honestly,
same track.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think we are.
secondary science and health could have been two bullets.
Say that, they could have been two.
They could have been two
Okay.
separate bullets, they're two separate adoptions.
So I want to be even more specific, that in health is included sexual health. And there are some things in there that are not settled science. So I just want to be on the record saying that I don't feel like science and health, as we are addressing those subjects, should be combined.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
The last thing I want to mention here
Okay,
is.
Ellen?
Yeah, I just need to break in briefly with a sort of technical remark here. When people, for those of us remote, and I would think this goes for everyone in the public as well as myself, when you are, more than one person is talking at the same time, it is impossible to hear. So if everyone could just have that awareness to not speak over each other, it would be really helpful.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, the last thing I want to mention on this slide is the guided language acquisition design training at the bottom. And that will be for TK teachers and for EL specialists. And it's known as GLAD, is the acronym. And it's a very powerful tool, been around a long time. In fact, one of our preschool teachers, Denise Indick out here, did a training in my classroom when I was a teacher at Pacheco in 1996. But it's still around because of the power of the program. We're going to deliver that PD to TK and EL specialists coming up.
All right, so those are notable action items in focus area 1. Rick is going to walk us through focus area 2, just starting a little bit with feedback and then we'll move into those items.
So multi-tiered academic support, otherwise known as interventions, is basically the thrust and focus of focus area 2 or goal number 2. You can see some of the feedback that came similar to what Leslie pointed out. Similar themes between students, parents, and community and staff. And a lot of the things that are here in the feedback are already a part of our LCAP and or will be a part of our LCAP moving forward. Some notable actions, as Mrs. Frost said, definitely not everything and not necessarily new, but notable actions. So we committed in this 3-year cycle of the LCAP to 3 years of our MTSS program, especially at elementary level. So TOSAs, MTSS teachers, academic intervention teachers, continuing to focus in on the most needy kids at all of our sites. And we're seeing growth. We're going to have some data at the end of the year here for the board about that growth, but we're seeing growth, and especially amongst our subgroup students, English learners, socioeconomically disadvantaged, et cetera. Avid sections at the middle and high schools continue to be, a big part of tier 2.
Yeah, as we're doing a pretty heavy duty recruiting process for our elementary grades, and with the idea to grow our Avid opportunities for our students both in the city and on the coast, to have multiple sections at both middle schools, because we know and the research confirms that the opportunity for students to be involved in that program, the teachers, and what we're doing with our Avid students as they move into high school, and we're seeing that commitment for that college going culture that we want to have, and that's significant. So it's a powerful program to have, and we want to continue that.
If I can just mention, my understanding is there's some schools in the state that are just they're just Avid schools. So I just mentioned.
Yeah, they're called Avid-wide,
Okay.
school-wide, and they employ a lot of the strategies associated with Avid.
Okay.
So that they're school-wide. For example, Cornell note-taking would be like a common practice throughout the entire school.
And I think at least in the last 2 years that I can remember, 100% of the Avid students have gone on to some or other 4-year university, which is fantastic. Summer experience, you've heard a lot about that. It's enhanced. Last year was really something to watch those students participate, not only in intervention type classes in language arts and math, but enrichment classes as well. And very well received by the public, very well received by staff. It'll be even better this year. I want to say 40% of our elementary students participated last year, which is pretty amazing. And I think the numbers are only higher this year coming up. We're continuing to look at behaviors. You all have heard, concern, I would think is the proper word, of the behaviors that we've had at sites. Our suspension numbers are up a little bit, and so that continues to be a focus of ours. So we're adding some specific program specialist time at sites that show the greatest need by the data. And then we're expanding our MTSS initiative to include behavioral supports for the team. So the MTSS teachers will do academic, and now we'll add on behavior supports along with program specialist support. And then we're adding, I think it's 0.5 FTE at TK level of program specialist time for the same purpose, to look at those kids at a very young age and start, to help them to have pro-social and pro-learning behaviors early on. And then we're shifting from Apex to Edgenuity, an online, as a platform for online learning.
Yeah, as we move towards Ingenuity and move away from Apex, we brought a lot of our staff together from our comprehensive high schools and worked really closely with the staff at PB and Mr. Dowler to look at and review Edgenuity. And we are working with them right now on customizing the courses for online credit recovery for students both at PB and at our regular high schools.
And some of these programs, some of these classes are A to G qualified.
Yes, they'll always will be A through G qualified.
So what,
You guys, might want to
Wait,
speak
wait,
up.
I apologize.
In what way does Edgenuity, is it superior to Apex?
That's a great question. So Apex is a lot more word heavy, comprehension, written word. Ingenuity is using a lot of different modalities. You've got a lot more video opportunity. There's a lot more interface with the student. There's a lot of work that we can do on the back end of the program to make it much more interactive and engaging. Students struggle in Apex if they're struggling with the reading comprehension aspect of it. And we see it, a lot of our districts, neighboring districts are using Edgenuity. A lot of other districts throughout the state are using Edgenuity, and we believe it's a little bit of a better product.
Thank you.
would you be able to give us some examples in a presentation at some point?
Absolutely,
It sounds so interesting.
absolutely.
And I have a question about behaviors on the line before.
Sure.
I believe the sheriff department has a program, is that being incorporated in there about preventive social behavior?
I'm not familiar with that program.
Okay,
Do you know the name or?
I don't have the name, it
Yeah.
just, or at least I don't now have a name. I talked to Sheriff Parkinson about that briefly, and he said that it was available, and he thought that he was working with his district, but that was like 6 months. Things change, I don't know.
Okay.
So, but I would like to see whether we could pursue something like that.
I'd be happy to.
Okay, Ellen?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment regarding protocol that, so someone has made a suggestion about a presentation and, we need some board consent with that and whether that is something for Friday notes or something that should be discussed at PLRC. And the same with exploring another program. So I just, I need to put that out there that it is how to best proceed with this before we start adding, typically, is this something, Ms. Dobler-Drew, that could be in Friday notes with regard to the programs you asked Mr. O'Connor about, rather than a presentation? Or I guess I would say we need to add that to our PLRC agenda, how to best proceed with this.
Okay,
Wait,
Mr. Buckman?
yeah, I'm sorry, Alan. So, no, I'm sorry, if it goes to clerk, two people of the board are gonna make the decision on where the presentation is. Often what we've been doing is the thumbs up or thumbs down, if it's for everybody, and I prefer that as the
And I
decision.
can't see what's going on. So I guess I should back up and say, is Ms. Dobler-Drew, are you asking for a full presentation at the board? Or are you asking for something in Friday notes and then we can have a thumbs up or thumbs down on how to proceed?
I haven't gotten that far, but since now I need to, I don't know how it would work in the Friday notes. Maybe we could do Mark's suggestion and do a thumbs up about interest from the board on seeing more about Edgenuity. And then secondly, the other one about the sheriff's program that I brought up, that I have to do more research on myself before I make suggestions.
Okay, then let's take them one at a time, please. So is there board interest in the Edgenuity, obtaining more information about that, either in Friday notes or a presentation?
I am interested.
I'm interested in that as well.
And I would like to say the Ingenuity piece, the transition from Apex to Ingenuity will likely become part of our board planning calendar, presentation calendar as we go into next year. We're not going to be able to do this very likely unless you tell me otherwise, given the size or the amount of material that we're covering in our meetings now until the end of June.
Yeah.
We're really talking about next year. And I would suspect this would be a logical board level presentation anyway, given the number of students that will benefit from Ingenuity, that are, I envision this becoming accessible for students in terms of credit recovery, in terms of taking additional courses, enhancing access to classes. I can just see this being a logical connection to board priorities that are established this year for next year, this summer for next year.
So is there consensus that this come back for a presentation when it fits in?
I would like to support actually what Eric is saying, because I think this is, I think it's possibly a bigger topic than just Edgenuity as a standalone program. It's how are we handling credit recovery and how are we handling programs for students that are maybe credit deficient, maybe looking at alternative pathways to create college credits for themselves and be able to graduate. I think that's a bigger topic than just the standalone Edgenuity, although I'm very interested in it because I've heard that Apex is just, it's not the preferred way of doing things really anymore.
It's not the Apex.
So
Yeah.
Ellen, what I'm hearing, or what I'm seeing here, and I realize you can't see it.
Yeah, you're the size of a pinhead.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't see anybody. So
Yeah, I'll try not to be a pinhead, but what I'm hearing and seeing here is that the board is interested by way of their thumbs up in such a presentation. However, Mr. Unger made the suggestion that I think is really accurate, which is Ingenuity is not a standalone. It's part of a bigger conversation around credit recovery, access to additional, more robust courses that kids may not be able to take because of our master schedule program or limitations within there. So I see this being folded into our master planning calendar for, as we plan out board presentations for next year, as we always do in the summer, based on feedback from the board, workshop in June. So that's what I'm hearing, and I think we'll do that on the natural. So are you okay with that?
is that acceptable to everyone?
It does look that way.
Okay, thank you. I cannot see thumbs. Okay,
And-
thank you.
And the other component of what Ms. Dilbert-Drew had mentioned, it was really more of an inquiry about the sheriff's department and trainings that they offer. And I did receive just recently from a parent at Laguna Middle School. She's a Cuesta College professor, and she had seen a presentation by deputies, sheriff's deputies at Cuesta College, as it related to fentanyl and the dangers of fentanyl in what they're seeing in our county. And so it was a presentation that she had said she felt would benefit our staff and our students, because there's two separate presentation models. I don't know if this is what you were referring to, but this is more recent of what I just heard. And I passed that along to my team, and we're gonna dive into that a bit. And they do go around the county and present to staff and students, of course, age-appropriate material, but it had to do with the dangers, the things that they're finding now that kids are getting into that are fentanyl laced and really scary stuff. We're talking hard candies that have fentanyl laced in it. Marijuana, of course, and other types of drugs that are just heavily influenced by fentanyl, which then leads into why we have Narcan, Naloxone in our schools now, in all of our schools. But it's sort of like what she had told me, this parent, is that this is something that's relevant and timely. And that's something we would build into our plan for next year, because like I said, there's only 3 weeks or 4 weeks left of school. We're not gonna get much done this year, but we've set the foundation to have those presentations and to have those conversations into next year, would be my thought on that. I'm sure there are other things as
So
well.
does that respond to your interest, Ms. Dobler-Drew?
Well, yes, I hadn't set a time limit, or say it had to be done this year. It's they're points of interest, and I keep, my ears attuned to what I think can be best for the students in our district. So whatever fits in the timeline is fine. I wasn't in any way implying it had to be
No.
done before the end of
Yeah,
the year.
and I heard that as well. Mr. Buckman.
Yeah, so I don't know, but I think the DARE program that's been around for a long time is still going, and that would be an interesting part of this question. Are we still having participation in the sheriff and the SLO PD's DARE program? Drug, alcohol.
We do at those schools, like Los Ranchos,
We do.
the sheriff schools,
Okay.
they call it GREAT now,
Oh,
they
okay.
changed the name of it.
Yeah, okay.
It's called GREAT. It's like some gang, they've changed a little bit of the focus on it.
So I guess what I'm trying to say, and Ellen, I hope this brings you into clarity, which is I know what you're seeking to do, is this, I think, is going to be part of our, lack of a better way to say it, culture of care component within the LCAP and within our district's narrative, which is how are we making sure our kids are safe? How are we making sure our staff is safe? And this component is part of that narrative.
Yeah,
So I
that's-
imagine that'll get folded in as well.
Okay, thank you. No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure we're following our board protocols.
Okay.
And I just had your lunches here, so you can tell me how you want to handle that at some point. But I think I would prefer to get through the LCAP piece since we're just sort of not break in the middle of it, if that's possible.
So are you guys okay? I can go grab them while you continue this conversation, okay? Please, Diane?
So just bear with me.
She's been fine.
Message.
Ellen, do you want a quesadilla?
Oh, thank you so much for thinking of me, Dr. Tater. I really appreciate it, but not today, thank you.
You're
I'll stick with my glass of water.
Okay.
Okay, our last focus area, Rick, and have we made it through 2 or are we going back?
We are good with 2.
We're good with 2. Okay, thank you very much. Focus area 3 is intentional culture of care. We've noted the feedback from our students, parents, and staff, and you've seen this before. This is on our overview doc. We've gone through a couple of board meetings where we've shared this. We're seeing some themes here like we do in our other areas, the climate of the campus, social emotional learning, the work of counselors throughout. So that's the kind of the theme of feedback that we receive. Notable action items as you go through focus area 3.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
When it says increased school spirit, is that another way of saying that the students want more engagement?
I think it's more engagement. I think it's more campus activities. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
gathering together like that.
As a way of building engagement.
Exactly.
I have a question on this back slide too,
Mhm.
where we are. I understood from someone that, okay, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance presentation was a kind of a one-off, and that it wouldn't be a yearly ongoing thing.
Well, it'll be,
Go ahead, Rick.
it was done at the comprehensive high schools this year. And the thinking is to do it at the middle schools next year. So it won't be ongoing for the high schools. It was a 4-part, and it's really a 101, basic information, and then it'll happen for the middle school staff next year.
So it's okay when they say we're inviting the kids to a party and there's drag queens there? Because that was part of the training. And it's getting younger and younger and younger now.
Yeah, I can't speak to that piece of it. I do know, and Rick, you have a little bit more experience here, but we're asking them to be aware of the maturity level of the kids with whom we work. Exactly, you know what I'm saying? So they were with high school teachers and then
6 to 12 graders.
right, but now they're going to middle school teachers and working with them. So understanding that the middle school age student obviously is younger than the high school age student. So age appropriate would be something that we say across any presenter in our school.
Okay, well, can you look into when they invite the kids to a party with drag queens? That's what I'm concerned about.
You're asking me to follow up on, say that again.
When we
Sorry.
when we have the planning, when we have them come back
Mhm,
to the middle school,
mhm.
I think the district should regulate the participation of our kids in parties with drag queens.
Participation of our kids.
No, they've been invited, they are invited to.
Well, I'd love to weigh in on that, because that's not,
Thank you, I can.
That was
that's,
an
that's,
invitation.
that
One
needs to
person
be
at a
very
time,
clear.
please. So Dr. Prater?
Yeah, and hold on one sec. I apologize. Okay. There are a few things that I'm hearing. One is, and I apologize, I stepped out for a moment. What I heard was something about the training for our LGBTQ training, which the students have asked for, that our staff become better qualified and aware of how to interact with those of them who identify as part of that community. This is what our students are asking us to do. So let's be clear about where this is all coming from. Members of our staff community are asking the same thing. They're saying, we don't quite understand or we're not comfortable how to interact with our more members of our community that identify as part of the LGBTQ community. That is what we're hearing from our students and our staff. So I want to be super clear about where this all comes from. The part of this year's training at our high schools at Morro Bay High and San Luis Obispo High originated from that feedback. We decided this year to contract with the Gala Pride Center. Quite frankly, they're the best around. They are, that is what they do. They communicate. I thought the training was outstanding. Okay, the staff that I spoke with, that I heard from, said that how much they appreciated the training. That it'll help them in the classroom, in the school, and And what I'm hearing from the student senators in particular is that they appreciate that we're even doing it. That, in other words, it builds credibility that we're actually taking steps to hear them and do something about it. Okay, so that's the context. This is not unique just to high school. It's also a middle school need. Because adolescents, students that are entering 12, 13, 14 years old are struggling with these things. Now, it makes no sense and sometimes I've heard this, that we are somehow pushing an agenda upon them. And I'm telling you right now, that's not what this is. This is simply to educate our staff on the very things that they're encountering in the classrooms with students, and I mean all classrooms. In our district, all you need to do is take a walk and sit in the classrooms, walk the hallways, and you'll see what I'm talking about. We're fooling ourselves if we think this is not a thing, if this is not an issue that our students and our staff are confronted with. So that's why in our LCAP, this is becoming a very specific and concrete training that we want to bring and heighten awareness around. Now, as I was handing out lunch, I also heard Mr. Oberdrew raise the issue around drag queens
And parties,
and
at parties.
at parties or drag.
That they were invited to during the training, professional, they said they were inviting the kids 6 to 12 to these parties where there will be drag queens and tarot card readings.
Okay, that I did not hear anything about.
They said that.
Well, I personally am not aware of that.
I was at the training.
And I find that to be a bit, I think, I would have to clarify
Please do.
what the context of that was. It might have come from a question.
No,
It was offered up as, this is what we do. We offer our kids to come to parties.
yeah, we're inviting them. They had a Halloween party last year. And they said, we're inviting 6, and you can find it on their website, 6th to 12th grade kids to these parties if they wish to come. They're invited, and they also stated that during the training, which I was attending.
Okay,
So that, I have no issue with that this training was needed in part.
Okay.
But I believe that we as a district must responsibly draw parameters about which we should not cross over. If we could do that.
We can review the training that Gala provides and
I
make
look-
sure that it fits what,
Yeah.
what our needs and that it's appropriate for a school setting.
Yes.
Well,
and we'll-
okay, I'm not mistaken on the point that I'm making.
I'm just saying, what we can review before they do the middle school training next year. We'll sit down with Gala, review the presentation and make sure that it fits the needs that you articulated, Dr. Prater,
Yeah.
and that it's appropriate for a school setting next year.
Yeah, there was a flyer that was put on our website. It made it through, it qualified, the criteria qualified, and it was sometime last fall maybe, that a flyer from, it landed up on our website under activities and events that are out there, and one of those flyers was about a Halloween party. And so I do remember that. Now, I also want to say that I agree, we do need to be, in my opinion, we absolutely need to be conscious and clear about establishing parameters.
Thank you.
That I agree with. But what those are, I think we may not find agreement on entirely. I think we probably need to have a broader discussion around what that looks like. But for me, as a parent myself of kids that have come through the system and one that's currently in the system, I feel, and spending quite a lot of time with students, I feel that that there are a number of our kids that are just struggling to belong. They're struggling with themselves, they're struggling to belong, they're struggling. And we see that. And I think without, I don't wanna project onto this at all. I'm just trying to be open and be clear with the group that I think there are a number of kids that quite frankly are feeling alienated and excluded. And it's not anything we're doing per se, it's just where they're at right now in their lives and they're looking to belong to something. And I think these events and these activities that you referenced, Ms. Dobler-Drew, are probably the attempt from the LGBTQ plus community to give our kids that they know are isolated and feeling left out, feeling abandoned, to give them something to belong to. And I for one don't know enough about those events and activities, which is probably important that we clarify. Like, what are these things that kids are being invited to potentially? And I'd want to weigh in on that as well. But I don't see a nefarious intent. I see really thoughtful, caring people trying to figure out how to help kids. That's my orientation, if you will, on what's going on. But there's a lot of discussion to be had about this. Whenever I look at kids who are lost, struggling, isolated, my nature is, and I know this room, my nature is to help them, figure out how to connect them. And so I think getting more specific now to the training is all about building our awareness and our capacity to help kids feel like they're not invisible in our schools. And that's really important for our staff and our students. The next piece is, what are those guardrails? Like, what are those things that we need to be conscious of that some of these outside groups might be bringing inside of our organization to our students? And I do think it's important we're aware of what those are.
Okay, I'm not gonna keep this going forever, but this is extremely important area for a number of us. And I wanna say that also presented is a curriculum to deal with the whole class. And these children whose minds are still developing are open to suggestion. So I know that in my own personal history and many other people, you wonder what the other sex is like. These kinds of materials actually feed on the undeveloped mind and make suggestions as to maybe they're in the wrong body. So now I put that out. I think we're going down dangerous avenues and support that too much. But yet I'm a teacher of 25 years who advocated for minority students. I have a heart for students too, keeping them safe. I'm just saying, this culture of care is new. Let's be very aware of what we're getting ourselves into. Because this is a more murky area than what we have traditionally done, which is to teach how to add 2 and 2 and read a few words. So this is a whole different area now. That's why I'm bringing it up now.
Yeah, and I've been at this quite a long time myself. I don't think it's all that new. I think it's just bubbling up.
Culture of care is a new area, right? Academic?
No, I think we're calling it culture of care, but that term culture of care quite frankly, came out of middle school reform 25 years ago. I've been using that in my world for 25 years. That's because in me, it's a generic term, it's just an umbrella. But now what we're folding underneath that, and I agree, this is a grayer zone. It is grayer because we're becoming more tuned in my opinion, we're becoming more tuned in to those that have been struggling for years and years and decades. And I think made you feel invisible and less than somehow. And now we're shining a light on that because the kids are now talking, the adults are now talking. But in America, it's settling well with some. Some say it's about time we're addressing these things. And some are saying, ooh, no, we can't go there. And as a superintendent who's actually I have my core principles are all about trying to understand where kids are coming from. And I think it's a time now where I think we need to become more aware, but also clear about what it is we're trying to do, right? And so I think this work we're doing, you mentioned curriculum. I'm not sure what curriculum you're referring to, but I'm not suggesting a curriculum. I'm suggesting we build our capacity and awareness. Our curriculum is the next topic on this agenda, which is what I'm asking you to weigh in, which are our English language. Today, it's history, social science for elementary, it's physics, it's health, and in a year from now, it'll be English language arts, because I know that's what really matters, that these kids learn and engage. Over here on culture of care, for me, I'm looking at continuing to engage and listen to our students, our staff, our community, and hear what they have to say about what's working for their kids and not working. And I'm not an extremist here. I don't intend to go down a dark rabbit hole. I'm just really trying to say how can we best navigate these tricky waters where kids are coming to school from all different walks of life. And I explain this to the county friends that I work with. I'm not trying to overcomplicate this. I just want to make sure our classrooms and our schools are led and engineered by people who truly want to create inclusivity, where every kid is acknowledged, every child that comes into our hallways, into our classrooms, has a place at the table, and they're honored and acknowledged for who they are. And I guess that's as fancy as I want to make it. Now, there are clubs, there are other avenues that kids can choose to be a part of. That might be where that curriculum that you're referring to comes from. I'm not familiar with it. But I do want you to know, I'm not naive either. I understand that there probably are some things out there that we need to be conscious of and be aware of. But the things I'm putting forward to you in terms of staff training, in terms of this LCAT, I think are spot on, solid stuff. And guardrails, I think yes, but by and large, what I'm giving you here is really solid, and I think comes from a place of goodness. It comes from a place of care, culture of care, creating environments for our kids and our staff that don't isolate, separate, or condemn, but rather include, involve, and engage. That's my ultimate interest. That's what I want to say to you. Okay? Questions, anybody? Okay, Brian, you have a perplexed look on your face.
No, I have a quick question. Well, so, I mean, a lot of what I hear you saying is that this proposed, the proposal here is basically based on direct feedback we've gotten from multiple groups of constituents, and you're trying to be as thoughtful as you can about incorporating feedback and input from the community into an actionable direction, and you're wary of keeping guardrails in place, but you're really progressing down a strategy that's based on pretty broad-based feedback. Is that what you're saying?
Brian, well stated, and yes, that's absolutely correct. Ellen?
I would just
Great.
add that this has been an ongoing and both in depth and breadth interest of the boards for several years now. And I, for one, appreciate that we are continuing to, again, thoughtfully and carefully address the needs set out in ways that take everyone into consideration. So that's my only comment.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, are we on?
We are.
Where are
we? We are on focus area 3, sorry. Moving forward, I think we got a good, strong conversation. I appreciate all of that. Looking at the notable action items, and again, these aren't just the new things, these are notable, and it's based on feedback from students, staff, and parents which was in the previous slide. You'll see Leader in Me on there. It's really building at our schools. It's an SEL and goal setting program. The district is going to buy a district contract. It helps out our schools that are implementing, and then those teachers will work in those areas over the course of the year. SEL and trauma-informed care. So while we have Leader in Me at, I think, 3 of our elementary schools, moving to 4 over the course of the next year, we do offer SEL to other schools as well, every school across our district. And then the whole idea of trauma-informed care. And what Janet is finding through student services is the schools are asking for this. The teachers are asking for presentations in this area. They still see their kids coming into the classroom with things that they identify as maybe trauma from the past, from COVID, from, any of a number of things, and they want to have training on that. So you will find that in focus area 3. We are maintaining our therapeutic support contracts. So we do have LMFT and MFT who come to some of our campuses, definitely our high schools, and we're hanging on to that. And then, of course, our Family Resource Center contracts. A couple of years ago in our LCAP, we actually increased and added summer work from our FRCs, and we're maintaining that, finding it very, very helpful for our families. In terms of counseling, and again, our students, our parents, our staff find counseling very, very important in the feedback that they give us through the LCAP. We are continuing the full-time elementary counselors that we added last year through feedback of all 3 groups. We're actually increasing our middle school PPS counseling coming up this year. You might remember that last year we did add a CTE counselor at the middle school, halftime at Loams and halftime at Lambs. We're maintaining that and then also adding to the PPS counselors at each site. So Laguna Middle School is at 1.8 counselors right now. I think it raises them to a 2.3. And Los Osos Middle School, with just their PPS counselors, a 1.0 right now, we're adding again another half counselor, right? Feedback from all of our groups that we need this work with our students and across our campuses. And then you'll see there, and we talked about this at the last board meeting, Janet Gould through Student Services was awarded a pretty large 1-year grant, $400,000, 2.5 PPS counselors will be added at the high school level. So that's 1.0 for SLO High, 1.0 for Morro Bay High, and a 0.5 for Pacific Beach. And this is really focused on student wellness, but we'd like to see all of our counselors working in that area. So that's a pretty large increase for 1 year. Elementary athletics for achievement, that will continue. We've really kept you up to speed on that through Friday Focus. I know some of you have been able to attend some of the events. Very, very impactful for our elementary school, so we're going to be continuing that. This next one, again, Student Services added this in. You heard Rick in Focus Area 2 talk a little bit about behaviors. And in special education, we talk about behaviors that impede learning, right? So the idea that our MTSS will be focusing a little bit on behaviors, that we've added a halftime program specialist to our TK program because of behaviors we'd like to look at in the tier 1. Janet has added nonviolent crisis intervention training for all admin and staff. And this will be one staff meeting. It will be our program specialist making this presentation. But it's this idea of CPI training, de-escalating behaviors before they escalate, right? Taking care of things in the classrooms, the way you work with students, the way that you handle their interactions. So we'll have that training for our school sites. And then also other training, and you'll see that in that last bullet there. We're talking about parent and site training that talks about SEL, so social emotional learning, that talks about equity, and we were just talking about some equity issues prior, and that talks about safety. And one of the things that we've looked at, and you'll see this in the goals, action, and budget that you're going to find in the board agenda item tomorrow, we're looking at what we're presenting to our staff and how we can present that to our parents as well, but addressing topics that are important to a parent versus topics that are important to a staff member. Just a little bit different frame. And these three things here, as we move into 24, we think are important things that our staff needs to hear about, but also that our parents would like information about. So social emotional learning, equity, and safety. Yep.
Just real quick, I think that Rob Lewin and his staff, you're already on it. I just think in the nonviolent crisis intervention, I appreciate that we're using in-house staff, but it might be interesting to just check and see.
Check and see what they can offer. Yeah, they are definitely, they definitely help us quite a bit in the area of safety. How are special educators go through a training called?
NCI is a nationwide program. That I know as a special educator, I have taken it on several occasions.
Exactly, and they're going to modify those I guess those ideas, those skills that special educators often know so well and take them down to that tier 1. But yes, and Mr. Buckman, as I look at safety, like when we're talking about evening presentations on safety, Resolute is somebody who we would go to very easily to meet with, yeah.
Just a thought, that's all.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. And I'm gonna ask Mr. Pinkerton to pipe in anytime he wants. What we did here was we divided our expenses between focus areas 1, 2, and 3, and then funding sources. So you can see here that right now, our focus area 1 roughly adds up to about 4.5 million. Focus area 2 is roughly 7.9 million. And focus area 3 is 2.7 million. When you go over to the funding sources, you will see that in San Luis Coastal's LCAP, we use a number of different funding sources. So you see a $15.2 million bottom line when our requirement is 5.5 million. What we do is we put in here things that we know address the needs of our kids. So oftentimes you'll see it way above the 5.5 million. But that kind of gives you an idea of where we are in terms of funding and the LCAP. So any questions about the budget?
So big picture budget. I wore my black shirt today just for this conversation. So just so the board knows.
I wore my red shirt because I'm nervous.
Right? And you should be. So it's, again, we're, kind of and Katie Eklund, who's on here, we've been going over it last week, right, going through things. So we're kind of in a weird place as a school district, right, from a budget standpoint. So the current Katie just did, again, and you're gonna get all this information to the board, right? But just some general big things to consider, right? And I don't want anybody shocked when they see the budget or kind of the 10-year, those types of things, right? Brian, again, we'll have to sit down and talk about the budget, right? Because it's very different than a professional business organization and how things go. But realize that the current calculations, if we only get a 3% increase in property taxes for next year, which is our projection, we would receive, if we were just a regular LCFF district, $87 million. As a basic aid district property tax, we're at 90. We're only $3 million into basic aid. Okay, so just put that in. There's good and bad in that, right? There's good and bad. The concern about like them taking away basic aid status and us falling off the cliff, all this, like that goes away, right? We're getting close. Now, property taxes might come in at 6th of November, might be grow, right? But this is the closest we've ever been in terms of that. So that's an interesting dynamic, right? And when we look at it, because we're so used to having extra money to do all these extra things that San Luis goes with. Okay? And when you compare like our services, our supports for kids, for teachers, for programs, right? Small schools, all those things, you compare us to other districts around us, it's not, we do way more for kids, right? And for staff, than anyone else. Now what's happened is on top of that is those school districts now are paying a lot more. They took the 10% increase and they pretty much gave it to staff. So it looks like, and again, may revise, this is where the governor comes out and updates us on the budget, is tomorrow. So we're gonna hear what happens. I'll send that to you on Friday. I know it's kind of what it is, and then school services doesn't break down the following Friday, but are they gonna take away the $2.6 million in one-time funds that they gave us in last June? Right, so that's something that right now we've taken those dollars out of the budget. So that's out right now. Hopefully we can put it back in, we'll see, but this first budget that you're gonna see Tuesday night has those dollars out, right? And so it's just an interesting time. We have added, and my response to Deborah Harris, I know the board received an email from Deborah about how we needed to add more people, we just don't have enough people, and we need to add more people on sites, right? We've added a lot of people. 70 FTE in classified in the past 3 years. 70 people. We've added 60 FTE in certificated. And so all of that was based a lot on COVID and one-time funds and those types of things, right? So that is unsustainable for us, right? Because those dollars, we're using them. So we're gonna have, again, the budget document and the 10-year document are gonna look very different, okay? Because again, the budget document, you put all those one-time dollars in as revenues, and they make you put them in the tax form as expense. When we know we're not spending all of them, but they make you do that. So we're gonna have, right now, looking at the 10-year budget, about $7 million fall to the bottom line. That's right now, our projection right now, okay? Well, we're gonna deficit spend next year about 6. Keeping all of these supports, everything in place. Okay? So, know that going into our budget, right? In order to keep everything going. And again, this was a plan. We're spending, keeping these COVID things. But that is gonna make next year's LCAP conversation very important, right? Because we have to reduce these programs. So I've gone through with Katie and we've made reductions in the out years, right? Not for 24, 25, so that I can get a budget that's goes through the county, gets approved. So again, next year, I envision us starting in September, talking about the LCAP. I mean, literally all year long, having these conversations about what works for kids, what doesn't, how are we gonna narrow down what we're doing, what's most important, is it class size, is it intervention, is it, what is it, right? So, it's just one of those things. On top of that, 2 years from now, we are going to have probably the toughest negotiations we've ever had in our lives in the school district, right? Because if indeed the governor gives an 8% COLA next year to LCFS districts, they're probably gonna give most of that in salary increases. So, I mean, you got 18% increases over that time. It's, so those are just kind of, again, the forefront of where we're at, right? We're again, building this budget, there's still a lot of needs from COVID, a lot of academic things that are needed, right? So we're continuing that work. We're not talking about cutting anything for next school year, right? But next year, as we look at the next 3-year LCAP, we're gonna have some real tough conversations, right? For teachers too. We have probably the lowest class sizes next year in elementary in particular than we've ever had in the school district. Okay? Which is fantastic, it's great. But there's, again, choices will have to be made as we push through, right? So as Dr. Prater said, when we were talking about new ELA adoption, first impactful instruction in the classroom, I mean, there are just some real critical things that we're gonna be, working on with our staff moving forward with, right? That will make it, hopefully make a big difference in the future. So, again, all of that said, we'll see what happens to property taxes. I won't know that until November, right? But, we're gonna have a lot of money fall to the bottom line, we're gonna spend it next year. And then we'll see, the following year, new LCAP, new budget, we kind of move forward, right? So the tenure actually doesn't look that bad. Long term, after those 2 years, right, we're okay. But I just know that we still have to make some of those reductions, and we have to, at some point, we're gonna have some real salary conversations with our staff, right? Kind of how do you want working conditions, you want more pay? How's that, those two things need to be worked through and in place. So that's my black shirt budget conversation. Joyous, right? Joyous news. But it's still, again, it's not, I don't want to scare the board. I don't want you to freak out. I don't want you to worry type of thing, right? It's just the reality of where we're at, this conversation. And we're still in a good place, right? We're in a great place. And we're gonna keep all these things going and moving forward, right? I anticipate we're gonna have another banner year of property tax increases in November, but I can't in June. I have to be conservative in my projections, right? I'm thinking they're gonna be better, and again, that's ongoing money that is exponential over time, right? When we get those increases, so I'm hopeful in November that they'll go up even more than we projected. But we really won't know that until then, right, for sure. So it's one of those things.
And what I would say, and I appreciate Ryan, and I do appreciate his black shirt, because he's doing his job. What I also want to say is, I really appreciate how this draft budget is designed, where it's tied to focus area 1, 2, and 3. So pay really close attention to that, and make sure you as a trustee understand that, because when we revisit the new LCAP for the 23-24 school year for the out years, the reductions we'll be looking at are going to be predicated on what we perceive as working, right? And so you'll be able to go to those action items, A through F, and look at the amount of money dedicated to those things, and you'll be able to assess for yourselves what you are seeing as an investment in our kids and in a successful school. Because what's tricky about our current environment, and Ryan's right, this is a really strange time, because the feds are saying we have to spend the COVID dollars. They gave it to us, and remember, one-time money, while I gotta say, I really appreciated those resources made a huge difference. But one-time money is a poison pill for people, organizations. When we talk about helping kids through a crisis, or helping our students and staff do that work of closing the achievement gap, it's all about people. It's all about people. So we're hiring people. 130, most of whom are classified support staff and certificated teachers, counselors. That's where we put our money. And we're proud of it, that's where it should go. That said, we have an inflated sense of what we can do in terms of people because of that one-time money. And I saw this come in a mile away. I I had a stomach ache since 2020 because I knew it was coming. And I know because I'm out at sites and I'm watching these people work their tails off. And I know we're not gonna be able to keep them all. And I'm just saying that to you. So these are the decisions in front of us. We're giving ourselves a year to kind of transition that. And I'll be asking the critical questions. What is really working? What is making the biggest impact? Mr. Buckman.
So I've asked this question before, just checking in, personal friends that have come on to work in classified positions. When they were hired, it was very clear to them that these were probably just temporary jobs.
So I would tell you, I don't think we're gonna have to do layoffs as an organization.
Oh,
We
okay.
have enough people that retire or leave every year that we can fill spots, right?
Okay.
So, I mean,
Cool.
I think we'll be okay from that standpoint, right? In terms of downsizing as we go. So which is a positive thing.
Mr. Banfield.
Layoffs are horrible.
Well, in the budget summary, we'll be looking carefully at these different action items.
Mhm.
But I was looking back on the slides, where are the items so labeled A, B, C, D?
So in the GAB, the goals, actions, and budget, you received it at our last board meeting and it will be in our board agenda item tomorrow. Everything is listed out, focus area 1, 2, and 3 with all action items, a description of each, all of that is there.
And I wanna say to that point, and this, I feel like you're an amazing school board, you're asking so many great questions, and it's an honor to work with you. What's gonna be really tricky here is just over the horizon, we're about to adopt an English language arts curriculum.
Elementary.
And I mean elementary, yes, thank you. And what that means that you may not realize, I still have twitches from our math adoption about 8, 9 years ago. Rob, I think you remember that. And what it will mean is we're gonna ask an entire elementary organization to shift how they teach reading.
While we're negotiating that.
And if you can imagine that for a moment, I've been doing workshop model, I've been to all the Lucy Calkins training, I'm feeling good, I'm dialed in. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, really, I'm asked to do it differently, where the system itself is radically different. And I might be overstating that, but the entire, I was just thinking, I read an article yesterday, I think Mr. Unger sent it to me. The state of New York is demanding.
New York City.
Requiring teachers to teach English language arts or reading in a specific way only. So what that does to teachers, and Mr. Oberdrew and Mr. Banfield, you'll know this, it's unsettling. It is unsettling, it's stressful, and then what comes with it in that budget is professional training. So now we have to ask ourselves, are we pulling teachers? So now they're having to do lesson plans, they're out of their classroom, we're expecting the superintendent to close that achievement gap, but the teacher isn't in the classroom teaching because they're being trained for an entire year. In fits and starts, right? So the professional and emotional toll on our staff, elementary staff, is going to rise, as Mr. Picker said, just when we're opening up our contracts. And I see it coming. This is something that I will be sensitive to and I'll be working on very closely over the next year and a half. I think there's a way to do it through a process which Rick has really done a good job setting up, and Diane, of course, and setting up and getting the teachers to buy in. But getting buy-in for 400 teachers, you might get the nods, like, yeah, that's fine. And then the day comes where that lands on their desk. And then you have the expectation of change. All the while, we're hopeful that our kids' behaviors and issues that we're seeing become more stable and less unstable that we're seeing over the last 2 years. That's what I see coming, and I want you just to be forewarned. Mr. Banfield.
So I've always wondered, where does it come from that, for example, our district will be adopting a new English language? Where does that come from? Is that a mandate on our district?
Yeah.
It's a mandate, isn't it?
Well,
7 years?
there's a normal adoption cycle that the state recommends you go through. But I would say this particular time, it was a couple of important factors. One would be the increased chatter, if you will, out there about the science of reading. And just like, I haven't read the article Mr. Unger sent to Dr. Prager, but I'm guessing that, it talks about how all the professional information out there indicates that kids are falling through the cracks and not learning how to read appropriately because of the current curriculum that we have, and that we need to beef that up. So we're supplementing it now, but needing to get a new curriculum to come in. And then the second thing I would say is that, we need to go through another professional development cycle with our teachers. Because as I mentioned before, 60 to 70% haven't been fully trained. And so from my perspective as a curriculum person, this is really exciting. And it's gonna help us to close the achievement gap. And so, those things are critically important. And so we're going to be spending a lot of money in our LCAP to adopt the materials themselves are gonna cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then the professional development is gonna cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's where you invest your money if you wanna close the achievement gap and make a difference with learning. It's tier 1, focus area 1, first best instruction. And this is exciting to me, and with the DLI programs as well.
Ron?
Well, and I think as a district, we'll understand that our instructors' effectiveness will probably dip a little bit until they can really wrap their minds around it.
Yes, so Rob brings up a really good point, is there will be, and this is my struggle as well, is there are some exceptional teachers in our district who have been teaching reading for a long time and are just dynamite. And to put a canned program in front of them, I'm not saying it's a canned program, but putting a program in front of them that radically or shifts how they teach, it's gonna help the majority of our staff. And I'm excited as well, Rick. I think what's gonna end up happening is, just like our math adoption, our scores in math are higher than any comparable school district, any in the state, our math scores. And I attribute that to the work we did in the math adoption for Bridges.
Yeah.
But if you recall, for those of you that were around during that adoption, we had teachers coming to our program every single board meeting for a year. Really upset because of the training that pulled them from the classroom and the weight of the program itself was so challenging. The reading corner, the career models, the way in which they moved kids, and then the parents would come and get upset because it's different. And it's just a whole, that's why the parent training in the LCAP and the staff training is part and parcel interlinked, because it's not just about culture of care. That parent education piece is also about, we wanna help you understand where we're going with literacy. We wanna help you understand why we're doing what we're doing from a methodology perspective. And if that weren't enough, all this is occurring with a new elementary director and a new assistant sup of ed services. So yeah, I'm filled with all kinds of fun thoughts as I enter summer, because in July, Rick and Diane will be gone, and Ryan and I and Leslie will have 2 brand new people that don't know each other. And we're gonna be building our team around the principles we're talking about right now.
Rob, the other thing too, to try to why we're doing this, two things come to mind. One, you know, we're seeing the gap isn't closing at some of our school sites, right? So part of this is to get a new curriculum in to make that happen. The second thing is, we are, our staff is pushing way too many kids into student study team meetings,
Into what?
and student study team meetings, and special ed.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I mean, like, you wanna know where a lot of our funds are going? It's going to special ed, right? Cause that becomes the intervention. Instead of good instruction in the classroom from the beginning, right? And meeting those kids' needs. So it's not just that, hey, it's 7 years, we need to do a new cycle. No, this part of this came from the Fast Bridge work, looking at assessment, where are we at, what's not working, and really, we tried to bring in this phonics program, right, to kind of help with that. We're seeing that work, the Sunday system that's come in, we're seeing some growth with that. So man, just think if we had a curriculum that integrated that in and all of our teachers were doing it. So that's, those are kind of two huge points, I think, too, that go into this adoption.
Chris?
I was gonna say one thing that I hope augurs some optimism on this is the DLI adoption that I think we're gonna be hearing more about. And the way the teachers are embracing that and the teachers' decisions for the programs that they're going to be presenting to us. So I'm hopeful that maybe we can use that example as something as we move forward with our new reading adoption.
I agree, Chris, I think, and we're going to do that.
So before we jump into adoption, the last thing I would say is just remember that this is, what you saw with this LCAP, there's only $15 million of a $140 million budget, right? So I don't want you to think that everything that has to be cut is just in these items, right? We need to look at district-wide, right, our budget, what we're doing, all those types of things as we move forward. So those are all hopeful conversations that I wanna just really spoon feed you over the entire year, right? So that this isn't just a, hey, May, hammer with these decisions, so that, and bring in people, bring in staff, bring in teachers, classified folks, that everyone's part of the conversation.
I did want to do one more thing as it relates to LCAP, and I think this goes, you guys are very, very aware of this, and it goes back to some of the information that Dr. Prater was sharing before. Over the course of this past year and next year, we're looking at those items in the LCAP, and we want to make sure that where we're putting our money works.
Yeah.
Right? We have to create metrics, and then we have to follow those metrics, and those help us decide what we keep and what we don't keep. Rick, do you want to just go over a couple of points about the metrics?
Yeah. We've said it before, I'll mention it again. Year 3 of a 3-year cycle. In order for us to track the progress, we have to use the same metrics. So you're not gonna see a big change in the metrics that we use, right? We want continuity in that regard. We do tweak. Fast Bridge is relatively new. I wanna say this is year 3 now of Fast Bridge, so that is relatively new still. But otherwise, the metrics that you see in the LCAP are ones that we've used all along. We have the big, broader state SBAC CASP metrics, but we also have our local, and they're not necessarily like in-house, but they're trimester benchmark assessments, and ones that we use on a more daily and weekly basis to track and monitor student learning and make sure that they're in the right place. Yeah, I think that, the last thing I would say is the dashboard. So the dashboard was suspended during COVID for 2 years, it could even have been 3. This year, however, the dashboard is live again, and we have data in the dashboard that will be included in the LCAP that will be presented to you on Tuesday night. We've spent weeks working on it. It's crunch time right now, so I'll be working on it more this afternoon.
Exactly. So the next time we're together is Tuesday night to talk about the LCAP. And in your agenda item that goes out tomorrow, just as Rick said, we are going to have the gap, the goals, actions, and budgets. You've already seen a draft of that document. We've been doing a little bit of tweaking, and that will be included for you tomorrow. That's an easily read version of the LCAP, which is also going to be linked. Rick works on the LCAP, he takes all of the information from the GAB and he creates the state template. So that's going to be attached for you, as well as the overview. That's that long document where we have each focus area and you have the feedback followed by the actual action items, followed by the metrics. So all of that will be available for you, and then Tuesday night is our first read and our first public hearing.
And I'll highlight the changes that we made in the budget action goals document. There were just a few, but I'll highlight them for you and tweaking that.
Okay, any questions? Eve?
So Dr. Prater, in regard to a correspondence you and I had, you were answering my question about parent educational opportunities. For parents to be more in the know about this. And these will be unfolded at this next meeting or once after this opportunity for parents, so that we know that.
Yeah, so in the LCAP, as Diana was just saying, there's in the board, the GAP, the goals, actions, budget.
Yeah.
Our acronyms.
I know.
GAP,
Oh,
yeah.
no,
Yeah.
gap.
So you'll see it in there that we're trying to create a parent training module or series of modules that are offered to staff with the same consultants as we are with the parents. And the idea behind that is that if we are training our staff in the area of diversity, equity, inclusion with Sandra and Pedro as an idea, then we'll ask them to design a parent education module, not in an identical, because the audience is different. So it won't be an identical presentation. It'll be a presentation geared towards what parents are wanting to see and hear and learn about around DEI isn't the concept. And so what you'll see in the GAB is that effort. Now, it doesn't have specifics because we haven't, done two things. One, we haven't contracted with those people yet because the board has to approve the budget. But what we then would do is look at the board's priorities, which in my mind, I read my evaluation. So, I do have some questions, but I can clarify those later. But the idea is you adopt the LCAP, as Ryan said, that's only a percentage of the budget. Then the board workshop in June. And then from there, we start weighing in on the different elements. But in my view, parents should know what it is we're trying to do. And if we're offering training, whether it's literacy training or it's training on windows and mirrors, these are in my mind, and I said this before to the board, I think the parents should have opportunities to come to forums and workshops. We've done that historically in our district through literacy nights and math nights and safety nights. This would just be a playoff on that, but a little more formalized. And so I look forward to it. I don't have any specifics yet because I need to evaluate the LCAP once it's approved against the board's direction for me in my evaluation and the board priorities on June 5th that spin off from that. Then I will develop it. So I hope that helps. Yes, Eve?
I was looking in particular for an informative workshop for parents, because if the whole impetus is coming from parents, what they want to learn and are asking for, there's certain areas that the parents don't know. And so I was looking for us to inform them. on certain things, and that goes back to part of that GALA training, where it was saying that the school cannot divulge to the parents certain things. So I was thinking generically without revealing anything confidential, because it won't be specific to one case of a student and a counselor and a family. Generically, just letting them know what the state is saying now about those issues that we're beginning to train the teachers in.
Yeah, and you, I think you might be referring to AB 1266.
I think that's one of them.
And AB 1266 has been on the books for 30 years.
I don't know if I'm referring to that one.
Yeah,
So,
I think it'll be, to answer that question, I think the trainings will be a little bit of all of that. It'll be about, you know, I'm not one to you know, cloud things up. If I feel parents, you know, I'll be looking at the youth truth data, I'll be looking at that parents complete, I'll be looking at you know, feedback I get from parent leaders, the things that I see and hear. And there's so much we can do. And I understand what you're asking for, and that very well could be a component of this training. You know, I just also want to be mindful that that you know, there's some you know, things that parents, especially with kids who are struggling, you know, there's some third rail issues that I just need to measure out real carefully, make sure that, you know, parents are clear about what it is we're trying to do and what the law says we need to do, right? And that's the truth. And so it's especially important when you are thinking about the LGBTQ plus community, student community. And those laws are derived from that. You know, so it's a pretty tricky time. You know, 60% of homeless youth in America, teens, are identifying as members of the LGBTQ community. 60%. These laws come from that, and mainly because they are just a very vulnerable part of the population, and I think that's the alternative narrative that goes on.
get me a source where you got the 60%.
Yeah, I'll find it again. I saw it in the New York Times, actually, in an opinion piece in the New York Times.
An opinion.
No, but it was referenced. I can find it, I can dig it up.
That's shocking to me, actually. I don't know about anybody
I'll tell you what,
else.
I'm looking at something right here that says that a 2022 national survey on LGBTQ youth mental health shows that 45% of LGBTQ youth seriously considered attempting suicide within the past year.
Oh, well, that's a little bit different.
So
Certainly.
That still speaks to vulnerability.
But yeah, my idea, or the idea of parent trainings and workshops is to align them to the trainings that we're offering our staff, and make it appropriate to the parent group. And I think that is in alignment with what we've done since I've been here. And I think we'll get a lot of positive feedback from that. I really do.
Okay, I think the area that we can agree on is that we don't want this vulnerable population to be taken advantage of in any way, shape, or form. We want them to have the most truth for their future success as possible.
Yeah. Well, for sure, we don't want to be taken advantage of, and we don't want to make their situation worse than it is.
No, we're part of that.
And I, for one, actually think that parents play a key role in that discussion or at least in the raising of their children.
Thank you.
But I also understand that's not always the case,
No,
which
not
is why
always.
the law is in place.
If we could get those statistics like invulnerable, for vulnerable, how many are in a dangerous situation? I don't know. We could get those statistics.
I think there's such a thing.
Yeah, so Ellen,
Yeah, I just want to, I really appreciate this conversation that we've spent a lot of time today discussing the LGBTQ community, which is, of course, very important, and it all fits under our culture of care and the LCAP. But I also want to kind of keep us on track with the rest of, we still have another topic to discuss, and that's all. Kind of circle us back in.
thank you, Ellen. I'm gonna hand this off to Rick or Diane to talk about adoptions and Leslie.
Bring up the.
Yep. That'll take me just a sec.
We'll get Jane and Chelsea to join us.
And while they're setting this up, the whole point of this presentation today or on the adoptions and the LCAP is to give the board another opportunity to look at it and ask questions. So as you prepare for the board meeting next Tuesday, it's not something new to you.
Diane, as we're setting up for the next one, how does the board draft goals, actions, and budget, how will that differ from the actual LCAP document itself?
So the goals, actions, budget document is that line item, here are
Right,
the
yeah,
activities.
right.
And the LCAP itself is more of a narrative. So it's the template that's a narrative, but they're absolutely related. So the metrics that are in the LCAP itself will be in the goals, actions, budget document.
So basically, you've taken those and transferred to this, what we say, what I'm looking at is the board draft. With narrative in the actual LCAP document itself.
And they'll say like, how did the activities work? And,
I see.
you discuss some of the data and why you're doing what you're doing, and that's in that document. So 3 components constitute the LCAP: the overview document, the goals, actions, budget document, and then this narrative template, which you'll see on Tuesday night, or you'll see over the weekend when it's posted.
I had one other quick question on the LCAP budget. In the LCAP budget, the more detailed one we looked at the last board meeting, there were some line items related to technology and software applications. And just at a personal level, I'd be curious to figure out what the right forum is to learn about those and whether they're effective. And just curious what the right way to pursue that question or topic is.
Yeah, that's a good question. We've debated back and forth, and we've added and subtracted as we've used and not used some of the things that are in that category, Brian, including like we look at usage data. So there'll be applications, and we look at the usage data at the end of the year, and we see that really only a small minority of people are using that particular application. And then we'll inform them that, hey, there's a cheaper way to do this. You can site fund it, and we're going to pull it out of the LCAP. There were several that were in there because of COVID specifically, like, there was one, Go Guardian, it was called, and I think we still use it to a limited capacity, but when we were in online learning, we used it a lot. And so the things do change, and we do look at metrics, and oftentimes staff will bring up programs and say, hey, this is a great program, I really want to start using it. And then, we'll evaluate it and see if it's something that fits. And then a lot of the technology that you see in there is related to our curriculum. So you need access of some of those programs in order to make our curriculum function on the technology platforms.
Great. Yeah. Is there an easy way for me to do a follow-up just to learn a little more in that area? I guess what's the appropriate step there?
Yeah, we can schedule meetings with staff that could inform you about all that and answer your questions.
Okay. Maybe I'll follow up separately and just figure out the right path for that that's not obtrusive for everyone.
You bet. Sounds good.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, curriculum adoption updates.
So we have a lot happening, as you've heard in our discussion about curriculum and adoption. We did last year. We're going to right now update you on the ones that are coming up. And then again, next year, we'll be talking about ELA and others. So Dan, if you go, are you doing these slides?
I am, yes.
So an instructional materials advisory panel process, or an IMAP, gotta have an acronym, is mandated by law, kindergarten through 8th grade. For whatever reason, the state decided at the high school level that an official IMAP was not necessary. My own personal feeling is that because they're content specialists at the secondary level, that they put more in the hands of, the biology teacher to decide what the best curriculum is to teach biology, but I don't know. But this is the process here. You have a committee, you review the frameworks and the standards because that's the content that we have to teach, and the curriculum helps us to do that. You bring people together, you have a tool, a rubric that we use to measure and evaluate whether or not the curriculum meets all the things that we want it to meet. We, of course, pilot and train teachers on those materials so they can use them. And that's really where the proof in the pudding is. Like, teachers are expert at providing the feedback to say, hey, this was great in these categories here and weak in these categories here. And then we just kind of make the best decision as a group that we can about what program we want to use. And then it's brought, public input is provided, and we're out right now on public input for history, social studies, and Spanish language arts, both simultaneously for elementary. And then we bring it in front of the board once we have decided on one particular program and make a recommendation.
We follow a very similar pattern for our secondary, and Jane, as our secondary trust, has been instrumental in that process. Even as Rick described, it's mandated through 8th grade. It's not necessarily for high school, but we follow exactly the same process, and we'll be bringing that same recommendation to the board on Tuesday night.
It's best practice, really. That's kind of what we have discussed as a district. Like, this is good practice and a good process. Let's use it for secondary. So
Just within that process, what's our outreach to parents saying, hey, we're about to adopt this. Why don't you come to a workshop at each school? I don't know. What's our process for involving parents?
So the state mandates what the whole IMAP process looks like. And what they require for parent input is that we provide materials at several different sites. We provide a tool that parents can use to evaluate those materials. And then we invite people to come and take a look at the materials and provide feedback.
And how's that invite done?
Well, through Parent Square, through a site sending out notifications, through instructional services sending out notifications. We also include electronic links, so parents don't have to come to a site. They can review materials electronically, which is certainly beneficial and preferential even.
School site councils, ELAC?
That's not a requirement, not something that we have done, but we do run by, like this year, for example, we brought in front of DLAC that we were adopting this curriculum, and we went through the process with parents and discussed that with them and shared links with them so that they could provide feedback on it.
So I'm trying to put these two together, like in the LCAP, 800 surveys back on top of all the people that were involved. And what I'm hearing is sometimes this is 2007, now I can't even do that. 18 years using a textbook, so I don't know.
I would say, Mark, that I have seen from the elementary school, new parent squares that I get. And actually, I believe for the secondary, but elementary for sure, I've seen on several occasions at several school sites, notices that we are adopting these and inviting parents to review them.
And while I appreciate parents' work,
Sure.
I think some of our homes need only language and illiterate. And so this affects, and so just thinking 800 surveys back, all that effort, I'm totally on board with that level of outreach. I think it's absolutely amazing what you did on the LCAP. I don't know if it's possible to do it on this, but I don't know.
I will say,
And I know Leilani, I think it's DLAC that she's bringing the curriculum updates to.
we did.
This,
We did all,
as
I was
part of
there.
that.
Oh.
That I happened to be on site council for many years at my elementary school. And I don't know if it was because I was on site council, but I was asked to be a parent representative to a curriculum adoption. And so I came up to the district office and I looked at what was being proposed. So yes, there is outreach in that way, and I don't know if it was specifically site council or just because I was an involved parent.
I'm just
Yeah.
asking and throwing it out.
Sure.
That's all.
Sure.
There's a lot of
And that was
ways- lot of
many
ways to
years
read
ago,
that.
I might have.
We have
So are there
parent
still parent reps? Okay,
reps.
good.
We do have parent reps on all the IMAP committees,
From each school?
not from each school, but we do have parent representation. And then I would say the process as outlined by the state is very heavy on teacher input. You know, their interest
As it
is,
should be.
teachers are the ones who are gonna use this curriculum, they're the ones who know, and they should be heavy in the, but we do everything we can for outreach, okay?
Great, thanks.
So for elementary curriculum, and at this time I wanna ask Chelsea to chime in on a few of these things. Chelsea and Jane are invaluable to the operations of instructional services. Like they are involved in every single thing we do. If you walk into room E3 at the end of the hall, it's a warehouse for a summer experience program coming up. And the amount of work that goes into doing that, producing that is tremendous. And Chelsea has done a great job of leading the committees that have looked at and are reviewing these curricular adoptions. So can you briefly talk about the elementary adoptions that we have up on the?
Sure. So as you know, we're doing the Spanish language arts adoption with Pacheco and Baywood this year. And we've met many times on the roadmaps that you've seen. And we're doing history, social studies adoption in elementary as well. Including some of the teachers who are amazing to be able to sit on both committees. So that means days out of the classroom for training because we want that input from our Spanish language arts teachers as well. And English language arts, we're in the process of learning about all the things that we need to know in order to do really diligent work and looking at those materials. And next year we'll be piloting for English language arts.
And then just currently on the right there, those are the supplemental programs we're using because our curriculum didn't have the proper components in phonics, phonemic awareness, and handwriting. Okay?
This is the roadmap. Remember, we had these many roadmaps that we shared the last time. So I think we get together as a pilot team, we choose the programs, like we said before, pilot both of the programs, and by this time, March, April, I guess it's already May. This is how fast the end of the year is going for me. I don't know how you guys feel, but by this time, teachers were able to vote and say what it was that they liked and have lots of discussion about why they liked it. And it's time to bring their recommendations to you. So we're at the May 2023 place. And at the same time, in the April public review as that you see going out. So there's places on Monarch Grove and Bishop's Peak has physical history adoption samples, as well as we have them up here at the district office for people to come look at. And there's a digital interface that people can click and look, and a survey. We've had 15 people
For history.
give some feedback. Yeah.
But elementary Spanish language arts will come in front of the board at the May 30th meeting.
Yeah.
Not this Tuesday, but the May 30th.
Yeah.
Okay?
Anything else?
And then this is history, social studies, so out for public review right now. That'll finish tomorrow or Monday. I think it finishes either tomorrow or Monday, and then Tuesday it'll come in front of the board.
Yeah, I think it's Monday.
Yeah.
It's our official end date.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions about history? Yeah.
So we'll be voting to approve the history, social studies, science.
Correct.
Curriculum.
Correct.
Okay, this next thing, and the 30th, you said the Spanish.
Spanish language arts.
And we have all the samples in ISLA, if you want to come and take a look at those. But I wanted you to know quickly that one of the things that's great about this history curriculum is that it comes in English and in Spanish. These are 2 different grade levels, but it's the same thing, right? The same book in English, the same book in Spanish. Students get an interactive notebook. There's one in English, there's one in Spanish. And there's super friendly teacher digital access. So there's a teacher's guide plus digital access that they really like. So that's been, people really were excited about this program.
And 100% of the committee
Yeah.
voted to go with
This
this
one,
particular
yeah.
program of the IMAP.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
How long can you come back, Mr. Vanfield? Are there any windows to come back and teach history for 5th grade?
Well, I just remember. Oh, I don't wanna take too much. Anyway,
Yeah,
that's good.
I think you would like it, yeah.
So for elementary reading committee, we've had several meetings this year. We're trying to narrow down to just 2 programs to pilot for next year. The training will be provided in June, another opportunity in August. For those on the reading committee who will do the piloting. And then we'll have meetings throughout next year to get feedback. How's it going? What do you think about this curriculum? We'll have tools. And then in spring, this time next year, we'll bring a recommendation to the board as to which program we should adopt for the following year. And it's gone really well. People have come, and we got a very vocal, diverse group of teachers to be on this committee. People with very strong opinions. And we told them, like, that's what we want, a robust conversation on what reading instruction needs to look like in the future in our district.
And we
it's a
have
great group.
one parent. It's
We
a
have
lot,
parents.
it's whole day training that we have, so it was a lot. We had tried to get parents on there, but not very many people could come for a whole day training. So we do have one very committed parent we really appreciate, yeah.
Okay, next one. And then grade 6, I've mentioned before that in town, we are shifting to using the same language arts program that secondary uses and the 6th grade teachers are currently using at Los Osos Middle School. And the group was fine. We met with them, went over our reasoning and why, and they were fine with it. So 6th grade in town will get some training in June, again in August, and then use the curriculum next year.
And it's not Florida, sorry, I saw the picture,
Oh.
it's just clipped from the internet, so, yeah. But it is into literature.
Well, yeah, we don't want the governor, never mind. Or Disneyland. So the data that we've seen in the past on the reading stuff has sort of been from 2 different programs, so that data will become, yeah, I guess it's a formula, it'll become more valuable because it's.
For secondary.
Yeah, it'll be the same program. Yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay, Pat?
And as we transition to secondary for ELA, if you recall last spring, we did the secondary adoption into literature. And this is just to remind everyone that we did that last spring and that the feedback from our staff is wonderful. I've sat in many a class at middle school over the last year, both at Loans and Labs, and watched some staff work with it and they really enjoy it, and the students really enjoy it as well. And that's really important. And then we see it also at the high school level. This, over the last 5 years, just a brief reminder of what we've done as a board and as a district with regard to our adoptions and our pilots. We've done a lot of work for various courses, and now we're going to talk about 2 additional courses that we'll bring to your attention for next week. Physics pilot. So we've been working with our secondary teams at Morro Bay High and San Luis Obispo High School, our teachers who teach our physics and our advanced placement physics specifically to get their feedback and their work with that. And Jane, you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so currently at San Luis Obispo High School, there are 3 sections of college prep physics offered, distinct from AP physics. Morro Bay is currently only able to support an AP physics program with the number of students enrolled in the courses, but we included both Kennedy Crockett and Marie Pink, who are the teachers of physics. They're the only ones at their settings, so we had them come together to review 2 different physics curricula, Inspire Physics and Physics in the Universe. over the course of a year, they're also able to collaborate with each other on physics curriculum as well, which was helpful to them. And they did decide on, based throughout their pilot experience and community feedback, to move forward with recommending to you for adoption on Tuesday this Physics in the Universe program through HMH for college prep physics. And they are appreciative of having a college prep physics specific curriculum because we just only were working from our AP physics textbooks and then, you know, what they were able to provide. So we wanted to make sure that we were serving those students who maybe decided not to take AP physics for various reasons. It might be their math skill level, it might be they're just dipping their toes into physics and they want to learn more and experiment. And so we felt that this curriculum served those students best.
Our health pilot, we've been working with our health teachers at high school, Grundy's, Dan Monroe, Sean Allstott, Morro Bay, San Luis Obispo High School. We've been messaging as best as possible, quick as possible to our community. Mark, you mentioned how do we let our community know? Weekly newsletters, our Parent Square. We really appreciate the fact that we can do it electronically as well because we can make links available for parents to be able to click and review. We make our materials available here at the district office. We make materials available at the school site. We've made materials available to you as board members. And we've had 3 different texts that we've been working through and having those conversations around and piloting. And lots of good feedback around each of them. Jane, you want to pick up and give us the overview there?
Well, and to add to Leslie's comment, we did provide online access to all parents and board members for the health curricula. So, you know, we were lucky in the sense that the publisher was able to offer us like just open access to the student edition for community members. So we did try to make that as accessible as possible. And then for the health pilot, our teachers came together from the comprehensive high school, so Morro Bay High and SLO High. We have 3 health teachers currently, and they piloted these programs and reviewed them as well, and they felt that comprehensive health skills for high school students from Goodhart Wilcox best aligned with the California health standards as well as the requirements of the California Healthy Youth Act, which is a really important legal requirement when it comes to health education in California. And they've done an amazing job combing through these materials. I think health of all subjects is just constantly changing and updating. And our last textbook was published in 2004, which was before the advent of vaping. So, you know, that's something that has to be addressed in our health programs. And of course, our teachers have been talking about those things. But we wanted an updated curriculum that represented changes in our world that affect our students on a daily basis. So they've done an incredible job reviewing this material very closely and piloting it in their classrooms.
I have a question about the PPP part. Is that part of the online availability that you talked about?
So Positive Prevention Plus is separate from this curriculum. It's used for our sexual health education component for both middle school and high school. There's a middle school program and a high school program. In California, we have passive consent, so our schools send out information, I think 14 days before the teachers are going to teach sexual health, and let parents know they can opt out if they so choose, and they can also review the curriculum. Positive Prevention Plus is a publisher where you have to see the print curriculum. We don't have online access to all the materials. However, for example, today we had a parent come in to review the middle school health binder, and then I opened up my account for the slides and all the supplemental materials that teachers have access to so they could review it. So yes, we can have people review, it's just not quite the same ease of access as these publishers give us.
Okay, not online.
Not fully online, no.
I can, on the health curriculum, I dug in pretty deep. Yes. I was really excited to see the amount of stuff within that curriculum on decision-making and teaching kids to make evaluations of adults. I was really excited to see all the way through the elementary curriculum, to talk to strangers, don't talk to strangers. I mean, literally, I think it said, don't take rides with strangers. And I think we have seen that kind of maybe pay off this year. I mean, it's a horrible situation. Interpersonal decision-making, accessing valid information in the 3rd grade, analyze internal and external influences. It just goes on and on all the way through high school. It's an amazing curriculum. So I just compliment you. And it's just, I mean, it's really preparing kids. It often in here says, find an adult you trust, such as your parent, number one, over and over and over, stresses the relationship with the kids and their parents. It's really amazing.
And
Thank you.
thank you. That was part of our rubric when we evaluated the material, that there was a component for parent-guardian communication. And the standards also say trusted adults. And that's a key portion of health. And I think that what's great about this curriculum as well is it is supposed to promote health enhancing behaviors and helping students understand what may be future scenarios or current scenarios in their life in which they would have to make those decisions about their health or influence their peers in a positive way.
I really appreciate you guys being sensitive to that.
Then finally, obviously, the AP chemistry pilot, we're looking at this spring and then into next year. And we'll bring that conversation to the board next year with regards to what we're doing there. And it is our hope that we're kind of going, tying a ribbon on all of our adoptions at that secondary level, where we can leave it safely behind at the end of 2024.
Okay, it's 1:25, the witching hour is upon us. Are there any questions for Chelsea, Jane, Leslie, Rick, Diane, myself regarding these upcoming adoptions? Trying to give you every opportunity to kind of weigh in on it. I really appreciate the team here. You've really done a great job. It's a thorough process and it really is helpful. Ultimately, really builds that capacity in our organization. So I appreciate the board spending so much time today. We covered a lot of material. So without that, beyond that, Ellen, you have any other questions?
No, I think we're good. I would urge everyone just because it's close to the end of the school year and so much going on to, just read your agenda packet carefully and try and get some questions answered prior to the meeting, so everyone's as fully informed as possible when we gather.
Okay. Ellen, thank you. Enjoy the beautiful Lake Shasta area. Brian, I hope you're enjoying that hotel room you're in.
Pretty nice, yes.
Yep. And